I stood in Dante Moretti's kitchen at 3 in the morning with a manila folder spread across the marble counter and my entire world crumbling between my shaking fingers. The file contained everything. Police reports with my father's name highlighted in yellow. Bank statements showing loans dating back 5 years, not 3 months like he'd told me. Photographs of him entering underground gambling dens in places I didn't even know existed. And at the bottom of the stack, the loan agreement that had sold me into this marriage. The signature at the bottom was mine. Perfect loops and curves I'd practiced since elementary school. Except I'd never signed this document. Never seen it before tonight. Never agreed to borrow $500,000 from the Moretti family. My father had forged my name, and when he couldn't pay, he'd offered me up as settlement for a debt I didn't even know existed. The door opened behind me. I didn't turn around. Didn't need to. I'd learned to recognize Dante's footsteps in the 3 days since our wedding. Steady. Controlled. The walk of a man who'd never been afraid of anything in his life. You knew. My voice came out strange, hollow, like it belonged to someone else. You knew my father forged my name. You knew I didn't owe you anything, and you married me anyway. The silence stretched between us. I could feel him behind me, could smell his cologne. Something expensive and dark that I'd started associating with safety and danger in equal measure. Yes. His voice was calm, matter of fact. Like we were discussing the weather instead of the fact that my entire marriage was built on fraud. I finally turned to face him. Dante stood in the doorway, still wearing the blood-spattered shirt from whatever business had kept him out until this ungodly hour. His dark hair was disheveled, his jaw tight. But those winter storm eyes were steady on mine. Why? It was all I could manage. One word carrying the weight of everything I couldn't process. Because I needed a wife. And you needed protection from what your father did. I laughed. It sounded broken even to my own ears. Protection. You trapped me in a marriage I never agreed to for a debt I never made. That's not protection. That's slavery. Your father would have sold you to someone else. Dante stepped into the room. Didn't come closer, but his presence filled the space. Do you understand that, Elena? The moment I saw that forged signature, I knew Vincent Russo was desperate enough to use his own daughter. If not me, it would have been Volkov, or the Bratva, or some other family that wouldn't have given you a choice about the wedding night. So you're a hero now. My hands clenched into fists. You forced me into marriage, and I'm supposed to be grateful. I gave you options. Another step forward. The guest room. The choice. Your freedom within these walls. These walls are still a cage. Yes. His eyes went hard. But it's my cage. And in my cage you're safe. Protected. And you're not being passed around to settle your father's debts like some piece of meat on a marketplace table. He stopped. Bit off whatever he'd been about to say. I stared at him. Something clicking into place. Like who Dante? Who else was passed around? It doesn't matter. It does. My voice rose. Because you're not doing this for legitimacy or appearances or any of the reasons you told me. You're doing this because someone you cared about was sold and you couldn't stop it. His jaw clenched. The muscle jumping beneath skin pulled tight with tension. My mother. The words came out flat. Dead. My father sold her to pay a debt when I was 7 years old. I watched her be dragged out of our home screaming my name while he counted money at the kitchen table. She died 3 months later in a brothel fire. And my father died 3 months after that when I was old enough to hold a gun steady. The air left my lungs. Dante's eyes never left mine. So yes, Elena, I forced you into marriage. I used your father's debt to trap you. But I also made sure that you would never end up like my mother. That you would never be passed to someone who would break you. That you would have a choice even if the choices were limited. I didn't know what to say. Didn't know how to process this version of Dante. The one who stood in his blood-stained shirt at 3 in the morning and confessed to murdering his own father to avenge a woman sold like livestock. You should have told me. My voice came out softer than I intended. You should have explained instead of just taking what you wanted. If I'd explained, you would have run. He took another step closer. Would have chosen uncertainty over guaranteed safety. Would have convinced yourself you could handle it alone. And 6 weeks later, I would have been pulling your body out of the Chicago River with a Volkov bullet in your skull. Would that have been better? No, I whispered. The folder still sat on the counter between us. Evidence of my father's betrayal. Proof that everything I'd believed about my family, about my life, about my own choices had been built on lies. How long have you known? I asked. About the forgery. About my father using me? Dante pulled out his phone, tapped the screen, slid it across the counter toward me. 2 years. The phone showed surveillance photos. Me leaving the hospital after a shift. Me at the grocery store. Me sitting alone in my apartment eating ramen because I'd sent that month's paycheck to pay another one of my father's mysterious debts. 2 years you've been watching me. The violation of it hit me like a physical blow. 2 years you've been planning this. I've been planning to destroy your father for 2 years. Dante's voice went cold. The moment I discovered he was using his daughter as a piggy bank to fund his gambling addiction, I started building a case. But then 6 months ago, the car bomb happened. Marco. I breathed the name. Dante's expression shuttered completely. The bomb that was supposed to kill me killed my brother instead. And in the hospital while I was recovering, I realized something. Vincent Russo had taken out that final loan the week before the explosion. Borrowed $500,000 from us, and then suddenly my car gets rigged with enough C4 to level a city block. The timeline was too convenient. I felt cold. You think my father was involved? I know he was. Dante's eyes burned into mine. I just haven't been able to prove it yet. That's why I needed you, Elena. Your father will contact you eventually. We'll try to use you to get information or access or whatever he's promised his new partners. And when he does, I'll have him. So I'm bait. The word tasted like ash. You married me to use me as bait to catch my father. I married you because you needed protection and I needed a way to draw out a traitor. His hand came up like he wanted to reach for me, then dropped. But that's not the only reason. What's the other reason? I needed to hear it. Needed to understand why this man who could have anyone had chosen me. Dante was quiet for a long moment. Then he reached into his jacket and pulled out a photograph, handed it to me. It was taken at the hospital. Children's Memorial. I was walking down the corridor with a little girl in my arms. Emma, I remembered her, leukemia, 8 years old. She'd been crying because a mother couldn't visit that day. I'd spent my lunch break rocking her and singing until she fell asleep. I watched you for 3 months before I ever saw your father's file. Dante's voice went rough. Learned your schedule, your routines. Saw you give everything to people who couldn't pay you back. Saw you skip meals so you could send money to cover your father's debts. Saw you stay late to read bedtime stories to dying children even though you were dead on your feet. And I thought, here is someone worth protecting. Someone who would burn herself to ash to keep others warm. Someone who deserved better than the hand life had dealt her. His eyes met mine. So when your father's debt fell into my lap, I saw an opportunity. A way to keep you safe. A way to give you everything you needed even if you hated me for it. And a way to catch the man who might have killed my brother. I'm using you, Elena. I won't lie about that. But I'm also protecting you. And in my world, those two things aren't mutually exclusive. I set the photo down. My hands were shaking. I couldn't tell if it was from rage or fear or something else entirely. You're insane. Yes, he smiled, sad and knowing. I am. I'm obsessed with you. Have been since the moment I saw you singing to that dying child. And when your father's debt fell into my lap with your forged signature at the bottom, I saw a chance. A way to keep you safe and catch a traitor and bind you to me in a way you couldn't easily escape. So I took it. I didn't hesitate, and I'd do it again. The honesty was almost worse than the deception. At least with lies I could have been righteously angry. But this brutal truth left me nowhere to hide. I should hate you, I whispered. You should. Dante agreed. Any sane woman would. But you're not running. You're not screaming. You're standing here at 3 in the morning looking at evidence of my obsession, and you haven't once asked for that phone I offered you. The one that would let you disappear. Because you already knew, didn't you? Deep down you knew I was watching. Knew this marriage was more than it seemed. Knew I wanted you in a way that had nothing to do with business arrangements. He was right. God help me, he was right. Some part of me had recognized the obsession in his eyes from that very first meeting in my father's study. had seen the way he looked at me like I was something precious and dangerous and absolutely essential, had felt the weight of his attention like a physical touch even when he was 3 rooms away. I picked up the phone. Dante's expression didn't change, but something flickered in those winter storm eyes. Loss. Acceptance. The resignation of a man who'd gambled everything and was about to lose. I threw the phone against the wall. It shattered, pieces scattering across the pristine marble like stars falling from a burnt-out sky. "Teach me," I said. The words came out steady. "Sure." Like I'd been building toward this moment my entire life. Dante stared at me. "Elena, you don't know what you're asking." "Yes, I do." I stepped forward, closing the distance between us. "You said I'm your wife. Your equal. Your partner. Prove it. Teach me how to survive in your world. How to fight. How to be something other than a victim. Because I'm done being the girl who gets sold. I'm done being the one who needs saving. And I'm especially done being the good daughter who works herself to death trying to fix a man who was never worth fixing in the first place. If you want obsession, if you want darkness, if you want a wife who won't break, then stop protecting me and start trusting me." For a long moment, Dante just looked at me. Then slowly, carefully, he reached out and touched my face, his palm warm against my cheek, his thumb brushing my lower lip. "On our wedding night, I rose from that wheelchair and gave you a choice." His voice was barely above a whisper. "You chose to leave, to stay safe, to keep distance between us. I know. Tonight I'm giving you another choice. And this one you can't take back. Once you start down this path with me, there's no escape, no redemption. Only blood and fire and becoming something you were never meant to be." "I know," I repeated. "Then welcome to hell, Mrs. Moretti." He pulled me against him, his hand tangling in my hair, his lips against my ear. "Let's burn it all down together." He kissed me and I kissed him back with everything I had. All the rage and fear and desperate need I'd been trying to suppress since the moment I'd walked into his world. This wasn't the grief-stricken kiss from our wedding night. This was claiming, consuming. A promise written in heat and hunger that neither of us would walk away unchanged. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Dante rested his forehead against mine. "Tomorrow we start your training." His voice was rough, low. "Marcus will teach you to shoot. I'll teach you to read people, to see through lies, to recognize threats before they become problems. You'll learn the business, the players, who can be trusted and who needs to be watched. And you'll learn how to be my queen in a world where queens need to be just as dangerous as kings." "What about my father?" The question had been burning in my chest since I'd found the file. "When he contacts me, what do? You do exactly what I tell you." Dante's eyes went cold. Hard. "You play the role. You give him what he wants. You let him think he's winning. And when the time comes, you help me destroy him. Can you do that, Elena? Can you betray your own father?" He betrayed me first. My voice didn't waver. Sold me before I even knew what was happening. Used me for years to clean up his messes. Forged my name and handed me over to a stranger like I was nothing more than a debt payment. So yes, Dante, I can betray him. I can watch him fall, and I won't shed a single tear. Dante smiled. Not the sad smile from before, something darker, fiercer, proud. "That's my girl." He kissed me again. Slower this time, thorough. Then took my hand and led me out of the kitchen. We didn't go to the guest room. We went to his bedroom, our bedroom now. And when he closed the door behind us, I knew I'd crossed a line I could never uncross. The next morning I woke up in Dante's bed with sunlight streaming through floor to ceiling, windows, and his arm wrapped around my waist like he was afraid I'd disappear if he let go. For a moment I just lay there watching Chicago wake up beyond the glass, watching cars stream along Lakeshore Drive and boats cut white trails across the lake, and people go about their normal lives completely unaware that mine had just been irrevocably altered. "You're thinking too loud." Dante's voice was rough with sleep, his breath warm against my neck. "I'm thinking about how 3 days ago I was a nurse living in a studio apartment eating ramen for dinner. And now I'm lying in a penthouse bed next to a man who's admitted to murdering his own father and stalking me for 2 years. It's a lot to process. Do you regret it? The question surprised me. I'd expected arrogance, certainty, not this vulnerability threading through his voice like a crack in armor. I don't know yet, I answered honestly. Ask me again in 6 months. Fair enough. His arm tightened around me. But for the record, I don't regret it. Any of it. Even the parts that make me a monster, especially those parts. Because those are the parts that will keep you alive. I turned in his arms so I could see his face. In the morning light he looked younger. The harsh lines softened. The winter storm eyes almost warm. But I could still see the violence underneath. The capacity for brutality that had built his empire and destroyed his enemies. Why Marco? I asked. The question I'd been afraid to voice. If you knew about the bomb, why didn't you just not get in the car? Why send your brother instead? Dante's expression went carefully blank. Who told you I sent Marco? The Volkovs. I watched his reaction. They called me. Said you used your brother as bait. That you knew about the hit and let him die to draw them out. Dante sat up, the sheets pooling around his waist. His back was a roadmap of scars I'd felt but not seen in last night's darkness. Long white lines, round puckered marks from bullets. The evidence of a life lived in violence. The Volkovs are liars. His voice was controlled. Too controlled. They'll say anything to turn you against me. So it's not true. Marco didn't die because you sent him to that restaurant? Dante stood, walked to the window. Stood there with his back to me and his hands clenched at his sides. Marco was dying. Brain tumor. Stage 4. He had maybe 3 months. The doctors said he'd lose motor function, speech, everything that made him who he was. He didn't tell anyone except me and his doctors. Didn't want Julia, his fiancée, to watch him deteriorate. Wanted to be remembered as he was not as what he'd become. I waited, letting the silence stretch. When we got intel about the hit, Marco volunteered. Dante's voice went rough. Said he'd rather die fighting than waste away in a hospital bed. Said his death could mean something if it helped us identify the traitors working with the Volkovs. So yes, Elena, I let my brother get in that car. I let him drive to that restaurant. I let him die. But I didn't send him. He chose it. And I'd give anything to have made a different choice. The pain in his voice was real, raw. But something about the story still felt off. The timeline, the details. I filed it away, added it to the growing list of things that didn't quite align. Maybe Dante was telling the truth, or maybe the Volkovs were, or maybe the truth was somewhere in the middle buried under layers of deception I hadn't learned to excavate yet. But I didn't push, not yet. Instead, I got out of bed and walked to him, wrapped my arms around him from behind and felt him tense, then gradually relax into my touch. I'm sorry, I whispered against his shoulder blade. For Marco. For what you've lost. For all of it. Dante turned in my arms. Looked down at me with eyes that held too much. Too much pain. Too much want. Too much of everything I wasn't ready to handle. Don't be sorry for me. Be smart. Be careful. Be ruthless when you need to be. Because the people we're up against won't hesitate to use your compassion against you. They'll find every soft part of you and dig their fingers in until you break. I won't break, I promised. You made sure of that when you chose me. He smiled, leaned down and kissed my forehead. Then let's get started. The next 6 weeks were a masterclass in survival. Marcus Cole taught me to shoot. We spent hours in the basement range until I could hit a target at 50 yards without flinching. Until the weight of a Glock felt natural in my hand. Until I understood that violence wasn't something to fear but a tool to be wielded with precision. Dante taught me everything else. How to read a room. How to identify who held real power versus who just thought they did. How to listen to what people weren't saying. How to smile and nod and catalog every detail for later analysis. We'd sit in his study until 3 in the morning reviewing surveillance footage. He'd pause on a frame and ask me what I saw. At first I saw nothing. Just people talking. But gradually I learned. The way someone's eyes would dart left when they lied. The micro-expressions that betrayed discomfort or calculation. The body language that screamed threat even when the words said friend. You're a natural at this, Dante said one night. We were reviewing footage from a meeting with his shipping contractors. I'd just correctly identified which one was skimming money based solely on the way he touched his watch when discussing profit margins. "It's not that different from nursing," I said. "You learn to read patients, to see when they're hiding pain or lying about symptoms, to recognize when something's wrong before the monitors start beeping. Same skills, different application." Dante looked at me with something close to wonder. "You're wasted in a hospital, Elena. You should be running empires." "Maybe I will." I met his eyes. "Maybe that's exactly what I'll do." His hand found mine, laced our fingers together. "With me?" "Always with me." I should have said no. Should have maintained some distance, some boundary between the girl I'd been and the woman I was becoming. But I was tired of lying. Tired of pretending I didn't feel the pull between us growing stronger every day. "Yes," I whispered. "With you." Our relationship shifted after that. During the day, I was the perfect mafia wife. I attended charity luncheons with the other wives and smiled and made small talk while mentally cataloguing who was sleeping with whom and which families were positioning for more power. I appeared at Dante's side for business dinners and played the role of devoted spouse while listening to conversations about shipments and territories and deals that skirted or outright crossed legal lines. But at night I was something else. I sat in on Dante's meetings, offered opinions on strategy, helped identify weaknesses in rival operations, and gradually the men who'd looked at me with contempt on my wedding day started looking at me with wary respect. "Mrs. Moretti sees everything." I overheard one of Dante's lieutenants say, "Don't underestimate her just because she smiles." The warning sent a thrill through me. This was power, real power. Not the kind that came from money or position, but from competence, from being genuinely dangerous. Dante noticed the change too, the way his eyes would track me across a room, the possessive touch at my lower back when other men looked too long, the way he'd pull me into his study after meetings and kiss me breathless against the door. "You're magnificent," he'd say. "Absolutely magnificent." And I'd believe him because I could see it reflected in his eyes, could feel it in the way he touched me like I was something precious and deadly in equal measure. But underneath the passion and power and growing partnership, there was still the question I couldn't shake. What really happened to Marco? The inconsistencies kept piling up. Julia, Marco's fiancée, had supposedly moved to Europe to escape the grief. But I couldn't find any record of her. No social media. No forwarding address. No trace at all. The explosion had supposedly been at a restaurant, but news reports from that night showed an empty parking garage. And Marco's body had supposedly been so badly damaged it required a closed casket funeral. No viewing. No confirmation. When I mentioned these discrepancies to Dante, he'd explain them away. Julia wanted privacy. The media got the location wrong. The damage was too severe for viewing. All reasonable explanations. All perfectly logical. Except my instincts, honed by 6 weeks of learning to read lies, kept screaming that something was wrong. Then came the night Victor Crane disappeared. Victor had been Dante's second in command. The man who'd stood beside him at our wedding with cold eyes and colder smile. He'd never liked me. Had made it clear in a dozen subtle ways that he viewed me as an interloper, a weakness in Dante's armor. At a party 2 weeks into my training, Victor had cornered me in a hallway. "You're not what you pretend to be, Mrs. Moretti," he'd said, his breath smelling of expensive scotch. "I don't know what game you're playing, but I will find out. And when I do, I'll make sure Dante sees you for the manipulative little nobody you really are." I'd smiled, sweet and harmless. "Then I'm lucky I have nothing to hide, Mr. Crane." But I'd reported the conversation to Dante that night, had watched his expression go from controlled to murderous in the space of a heartbeat. "Did he touch you?" Dante's voice had been deadly quiet. "No, just words. Threats. Just words." Dante had pulled out his phone, made a call. By morning, Victor Crane had vanished, his office cleared out, his apartment empty. His name scrubbed from company records like he'd never existed. "What did you do?" I'd asked. Even though part of me already knew, I protected what's mine. Dante had replied. "Victor forgot who he served. Forgot that loyalty to me includes loyalty to you." So I reminded him. Permanently. The casual violence of it should have horrified me. Instead, I felt something else. Something hot and possessive curling in my chest. He'd killed for me. Not in the heat of passion, but with cold premeditation. Had erased a man from existence because that man had threatened me. It was wrong. I knew it was wrong. But it also made me feel safer than I'd felt in years. That's when I knew I'd crossed over completely. The girl who'd married Dante Moretti 3 months ago would have been sickened, would have run screaming. But the woman I'd become felt only satisfaction. Victor had been a threat. Dante had eliminated him. It was efficient, logical, necessary. And I was becoming someone who understood necessity. But Victor's disappearance had another effect. The other members of Dante's inner circle started watching me differently. Started treating me not as an ornament but as a genuine threat. Because if Dante would kill his oldest friend to protect me, what would he do to protect his empire? You've made them afraid of you, Marcus said one afternoon during target practice. That's good. Fear is respect with sharper teeth. Is that what you feel? I asked. Afraid of me? Marcus smiled, a rare expression on his stoic face. I feel curious. You came into Dante's life an innocent, and within 3 months you're suggesting strategies that would make seasoned soldiers blink. That's not fear, Mrs. Moretti. That's anticipation. I'm waiting to see what you become when you finally stop holding back. I'm not holding back, aren't you? He nodded toward the target. 40 yards away. Every shot I'd taken had clustered in the center mass. Perfect kill shots. Efficient. But you're still aiming to stop, not to destroy. Still trying to be the good girl who only uses violence when absolutely necessary. But one day someone's going to threaten something you can't afford to lose. And on that day you'll understand the difference between shooting to stop and shooting to obliterate. I hope that day never comes, I said. Marcus's smile widened. It's already coming, Mrs. Moretti. Can't you feel it? He was right. I could feel it. Like electricity in the air before a storm. Like the held breath before a scream. Something was building. Something inevitable. And I had no idea if I'd survive it. The call came on a Tuesday. 3 months and 2 weeks after my wedding. I was in the penthouse alone reviewing shipping manifests when my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. Then something made me pick up. Elena. The voice on the other end made my blood freeze. Baby girl, it's me. Dad. My father's voice. I hadn't heard it since the day he'd signed me over to Dante. Since the day I'd walked out of our apartment without looking back. Where are you? I asked. My mind already racing. Already calculating. My training kicking in automatically. I'm in trouble, sweetheart. His voice shook. Bad trouble. The Volkovs, they're hunting me. They think I helped Dante with something I didn't do. I've been hiding for months, but they're getting closer, and I don't know what to do. I need your help. Of course you do. The bitterness in my voice surprised me. That's all I've ever been good for, right? Cleaning up your messes. Elena, please. I'm your father. You were my father, I corrected. Before you sold me to pay your gambling debts. Before you forged my name on loan documents. Before you spent 9 years using me as your personal ATM. That man was my father. I don't know what you are anymore. I heard him take a shuddering breath. I know I've made mistakes. Terrible mistakes. But I'm still your blood. Still the man who raised you. And I'm begging you for help. What kind of help? There's something Dante needs to know. Something about Marco's death. Information that could save your life and mine if he'd just listen. But he won't take my calls. Won't agree to meet. You're the only one who can get me in front of him. Why would I do that? Why would I help you do anything after what you've done? Because despite everything, I'm still your father. And because if the Volkovs catch me, they'll torture me for information. They'll make me tell them everything I know about Dante's operation. Every weakness. Every secret. Including things about you, Elena. Things that would put you in danger. The threat was barely veiled. Help me or I'll sell you out to save myself. Even now, even after everything, he was still trying to use me. I should have hung up. Should have told Dante immediately. But curiosity stopped me. What information? About Marco's death, what could you possibly know? Meet me and I'll tell you everything. Thursday night. The old warehouse on Damon Avenue. Come alone or I won't show. And Elena? Don't tell Dante. If he knows I reached out, he'll kill me before I can explain. The line went dead. I sat there staring at my phone, feeling the weight of the decision pressing down on me. This was the moment Dante had been waiting for. My father making contact, trying to use me. This was my chance to help catch him. But something about the call felt wrong. The mention of Marco. The insistence that I not tell Dante. The threat about information that could put me in danger. What if my father actually knew something? What if there were truths about Marco's death that Dante hadn't told me? I looked at my phone, at the call log showing that unknown number. I should tell Dante. That's what a loyal wife would do, what a smart woman would do. But I was also the woman who'd been lied to by every man in her life. Who'd learned that truth was a commodity everyone hoarded for their own purposes. And I needed to know what my father knew before I decided whose truth to believe. I didn't call Dante. Instead, I called Marcus. The warehouse on Damon. Thursday night. I need you to follow me, but stay back. Don't intervene unless things go bad. There was a pause. Does Dante know about this? No. Another pause. Longer this time. This is a mistake, Mrs. Moretti. Probably. But I'm making it anyway. Are you going to help me, or do I go alone? You're going to get both of us killed, Marcus said. But yes, I'll be there. Stay on comms. Any sign of trouble and I'm coming in whether you like it or not. Thank you, Marcus. Don't thank me yet. We might both end up dead before this is over. Thursday night came too fast and too slow at the same time. I told Dante I was meeting some of the other wives for dinner. He kissed me at the door and told me to be safe. His eyes lingered on mine like he was searching for something, but whatever he saw must have satisfied him because he let me go. The warehouse was in a part of Chicago I'd learned to recognize over the past few months. The kind of place where deals got made and bodies got dumped. Where questions didn't get asked and witnesses didn't exist. Marcus dropped me 3 blocks away. I had a gun tucked into the waistband of my jeans hidden under a loose jacket. A wire running up my spine transmitting everything to Marcus. And a growing sense that I was walking into something I wouldn't walk out of unchanged. The warehouse door was unlocked. I pushed it open and stepped into darkness broken only by weak light filtering through filthy windows. Dad. My voice echoed in the vast empty space. I'm here, like you asked. Alone like you asked. Now where are you? A figure stepped out of the shadows at the far end. My father looked terrible. Thinner than I remembered. His face gaunt and unshaven, his clothes rumpled like he'd been sleeping in them. But his eyes were the same, weak, calculating, always looking for the angle that would save him. Elena. Relief flooded his voice. Thank God. I wasn't sure you'd come. I almost didn't. I stayed near the door, near my exit. You have 2 minutes to tell me whatever you think is so important. Then I'm leaving. It's about Marco Moretti. Your father-in-law's dead brother. What about him? He's not dead. The words hit me like a physical blow. What? Marco Moretti is alive. Your father pulled papers from his jacket. Photographs. I have proof. The explosion was staged. Dante faked his brother's death to flush out traitors in his organization. And I know because I was one of them, Elena. I was working with the Volkovs. Have been for years. My legs felt weak. I forced them to stay steady. You're lying. I wish I was. He stepped closer. I got in deep with gambling debts. Deeper than you know. The Volkovs offered to clear everything if I fed them information about Dante's operations. So I did. For 5 years I sold intelligence. And when they wanted to take Dante out, I helped them plan it. But Dante was smarter. He knew there was a leak. So he faked Marco's death to draw out everyone involved. And it worked. Victor Crane, the shipping manager, 3 city councilmen, all exposed and eliminated. Everyone except me because I ran. But now he's using you to bring me in. No, I shook my head. You're lying, trying to turn me against him. Look at the pictures. He held them out. These were taken 2 months ago. That's Marco Moretti alive and well, living under protection while his brother uses his supposed death as justification for a purge. I didn't want to look. Didn't want to see. But I took the photographs and my world tilted. The man in the photos was older than the pictures I'd seen of Marco. More scarred. but the resemblance to Dante was unmistakable. Same dark hair, same strong jaw, same winter storm eyes. Oh God. You're starting to see it. My father's voice was urgent. Dante married you as bait, Elena. He knew I'd reach out eventually. Knew I'd try to use you. And when I do, he'll have the evidence he needs to tie me to the Volkovs and justify killing me. You're not his wife. You're his trap. No. But even as I said it, pieces were clicking into place. The way Dante had known exactly when to find me in the kitchen with that file. The way Marcus always seemed to be watching. The way Dante's obsession had felt just a little too convenient. Just a little too perfect. I wanted to protect you. My father reached for me. I know I've made terrible mistakes, but I'm still your father and I couldn't let him use you like this. So I'm offering you a choice. Come with me now. We'll disappear. Go somewhere Dante can't find us. Or stay and be his pawn until he doesn't need you anymore. Then what, Elena? What happens to the wife who served her purpose? You think he'll just let you leave? You think a man like Dante Moretti believes in divorce? I stood there holding photographs of a dead man who wasn't dead and tried to process what this meant. If Marco was alive, then everything Dante had told me was a lie. His grief, his guilt, his justification for the violence. All lies. But if my father was telling the truth about this, what else had he been truthful about? The forged signature. The years of manipulation. The willingness to sell his own daughter. He was a proven liar standing in a warehouse trying to convince me to trust him one more time. And Dante was what? Another liar? Or a man who'd done terrible things for reasons I didn't fully understand yet? Elena. My father's voice was pleading. We need to go now. Before Marcus or whoever else Dante sent realizes what's happening. How do you know about Marcus? The question came out sharp. How do you know Dante would send anyone? Because I know how he operates. I've been watching his organization for 5 years, remember? He doesn't let valuable assets move unprotected. So either you came here alone, which means you're stupider than I raised you to be, or you brought backup, which means we're about to have company. He was right. And the fact that he was right made my decision easier. I pulled the gun from my waistband, aimed it at my father's chest. You're not a very good liar, Dad. You never were. That's why you always lost at poker. Elena, what are you doing? You called me Tuesday. I kept the gun steady. You knew exactly what to say, exactly what buttons to push. The threat about selling me out. The promise of dangerous information. The insistence that I not tell Dante. It was all too perfect. Too calculated. Like someone told you exactly how to play me. My father's expression changed, the weakness falling away. The calculation rising to the surface. Smart girl. But not smart enough. He raised his hand and lights flooded the warehouse, blinding after the darkness. I squinted, trying to see past the glare, and realized we weren't alone. Men emerged from the shadows. 6 of them. Large. Armed. And very clearly not Moretti soldiers. Volkovs. You set me up. I kept the gun aimed at my father even though I knew it was useless. You actually set up your own daughter. I set up Dante's wife. My father corrected. There's a difference. The Volkovs have been very patient waiting for an opportunity to get to Dante through you. And you just walked right into it. Told your guard dog to stay back. Made it easy. One of the men stepped forward. Tall. Blonde. With cold blue eyes and a smile that made my skin crawl. Elena Moretti. His accent was thick Russian. We've heard so much about you. Dante's beautiful wife. The woman who made him weak. I'm not making him weak, I said. I'm making him careful. There's a difference. The Russian laughed. We'll see. When we send him pieces of you one at a time and watch him burn Chicago down trying to find you, we'll see if careful was worth the cost. Marcus. I said it calmly. Clearly, knowing he was listening. Now would be good. The warehouse door exploded inward. Marcus came through, first gun already firing. 3 more Moretti soldiers behind him. The Volkovs scattered, taking cover and returning fire. My father grabbed my arm, trying to use me as a shield, but I'd been training for months. I twisted, brought my elbow up into his nose. Felt the cartilage crunch. He screamed and let go. I ran. dove behind a stack of crates while bullets tore through the air where I'd been standing. My heart was pounding, adrenaline flooding my system. This was nothing like target practice. Nothing like the controlled violence I'd been learning. This was chaos. This was real. Someone was going to die here tonight, and I needed to make sure it wasn't me. I checked my gun. Full magazine. Safety off. I could do this. I'd trained for this. A Volkov soldier appeared around the crate. He saw me, raised his weapon. I shot him 3 times. Sent a mass just like Marcus taught me. He went down. I felt nothing. No horror. No guilt. Just cold satisfaction that it was him and not me. That's when I heard the voice that changed everything. Elena. It came from above, from the warehouse catwalks. I looked up and my heart stopped. Marco Moretti stood there, very much alive, very much not dead, staring down at the firefight below with an expression of fury I could feel even from 30 feet away. "Get down," he shouted. "Get down now." I dropped flat as an explosion tore through the far side of the warehouse. The Volkov's position erupting in flame and smoke and screaming. When the ringing in my ears cleared, I looked up to see Dante striding through the warehouse door. Behind him were 20 more soldiers. Enough firepower to level the building. The remaining Volkovs surrendered immediately. Smart men who knew when they'd lost. Marcus zip-tied them while Dante's men secured the perimeter, and I just lay there behind my crate trying to understand what I'd just seen. Marco was alive. Dante had lied. My father had betrayed me, and I'd just killed a man without hesitation. Dante found me there, pulled me to my feet, checked me for injuries with hands that shook just slightly. "Are you hurt?" "Did they touch you?" "Elena, answer me. I'm fine." My voice sounded strange, distant. "I'm fine. I just saw Marco. I saw him alive." "I know." Dante's jaw was tight. "I know, and I'm sorry. I was going to tell you." "When?" I pulled away from him. "When were you going to tell me that everything about your brother's death was a lie? That you've been using me as bait this whole time? That our entire relationship is built on deception?" "Not here." His eyes flicked to the soldiers. "The prisoners. The witnesses. Not like this." "Then where?" I was shouting now. "Where Dante? In another 3 months? Another 6? When exactly were you planning to let me in on the secret that you're a lying, manipulative bastard who's been playing me from day one?" A voice from above. "She has a right to be angry, brother." I looked up. Marco was descending the metal stairs, moving carefully like someone who'd been badly hurt and was still healing. When he reached the ground level, I could see the scars. Burns covering the left side of his neck, his hand, probably more under his clothes. "Dante didn't lie to you about everything," Marco said. "I was dying. Brain tumor stage 4. That part was true. The explosion was real. But I survived it. Barely. Spent 3 months in a coma. When I woke up, Dante made a choice. He could announce I was alive and watch our enemies regroup, or he could let them think I was dead and use that belief against them. So we faked my death. But Dante didn't marry you because of that. He married you because he's been obsessed with you since the moment he saw you. The rest of it, the protection, the using you as bait that came after. Complications of loving someone in a world where love is a weakness. I don't believe you. But even as I said it, I knew it was true. Could see it in Dante's eyes. The same obsession I'd seen from day one. The same possessive need that had driven him to destroy Victor Crane for threatening me. "Believe what you want," Marco said. "But you're standing here alive, aren't you? In a warehouse full of dead Volkovs with your husband looking at you like you're the only thing in the world that matters. That's not strategy, Elena. That's devotion. A commotion near the entrance. 2 soldiers dragging my father forward. His nose was still bleeding from where I'd broken it. His eyes were wild with fear. Dante's expression went cold. Deadly. Vincent Russo. He walked toward my father slowly. Like a predator approaching prey it didn't need to hurry for. "You've been feeding information to the Volkovs for 5 years. Poisoning deals. Sabotaging shipments. And when they wanted to kill me, you helped them plan it." My father tried to speak. Dante hit him. A single brutal punch that sent him to his knees. But that wasn't enough for you. Dante continued. You had to drag your daughter into it. Use her as bait. Offer her up to animals who would have torn her apart. She's my daughter. My father spat blood. I can do what I want with her. No. I stepped forward, my voice steady. Cold. You can't. Because I'm not your daughter anymore. I stopped being your daughter the day you forged my name. The day you used me to pay your debts. The day you stood in this warehouse and handed me over to the Volkovs to save yourself. You want to know what you are to me now? Nothing. You're nothing. Tears ran down his face. Elena, please. I looked at Dante. What happens to him? Dante's eyes never left mine. That's your choice. He destroyed your life. Used you. Betrayed you. So you decide. Do I let him live? Do I kill him quick? Or do I hand him to the Volkovs and let them take their time? The power of it settled over me, heavy, intoxicating, terrifying. My father's life in my hands. The man who'd raised me, who'd read me bedtime stories and taught me to ride a bike and held me when my mother died, and who'd sewed me, used me, destroyed me. I thought about mercy, about being the better person, about all the things the old Elena would have done. Then I remembered Victor Crane's threat, the Volkov soldier I'd killed tonight, the gun steady in my hand as I pulled the trigger. I'd already crossed the line, already become someone new, someone dangerous, someone who understood that in this world mercy was just another word for weakness. Give him to the Volkovs, I said. Make sure they know he's the one who's been feeding them false information for the past 6 months. Make sure they know every failed operation, every lost shipment was because of him. Let them think he's been playing them all along. My father's scream echoed through the warehouse. Dante smiled, cold and proud. That's my queen. They dragged my father away, still screaming, still begging. I watched him go and felt nothing. No guilt, no regret, just the cold satisfaction of a debt finally paid. When the warehouse was empty except for me, Dante, and Marco, we stood there in the smell of blood and cordite and the choice I'd just made. You've changed, Dante said quietly. Good, I met his eyes. You lied to me. Yes. You used me. Yes. You married me knowing I'd be bait for my father. That came later. But yes, I should hate you. You should. Do you? I thought about it, really thought about it. About everything that had happened since I'd walked down that cathedral aisle 3 months ago. About the girl I'd been and the woman I'd become. About the fear and the rage and the desperate desire I felt whenever Dante looked at me. No, I said finally. I should, but I don't. I don't know what that makes me. Dangerous, Marco said. It makes you dangerous. And that's exactly what you need to be to survive in this family. He nodded to Dante. I'll handle cleanup. You two should talk. Somewhere without quite so many corpses. When we were alone, Dante reached for me. I let him pull me close. Let him wrap his arms around me and breathe me in like I was oxygen and he'd been drowning. I thought I'd lost you. His voice was muffled against my hair. When I realized you'd gone to meet your father without telling me, I thought I'd lose you. Why didn't you tell me about Marco? Because I'm a selfish bastard who wanted to keep you even if it meant lying. Because I knew if you found out you might leave and I couldn't survive that. Because I'm obsessed with you, Elena. Dangerously. Completely. Obsessed in a way that makes me do terrible things and justify them as protection. I pulled back to look at him. I killed someone tonight. I know. And I didn't feel anything. Didn't hesitate. Just pulled the trigger. I know. His hand came up to cup my face. And you're not horrified by that. You're not afraid of what I'm becoming. I'm afraid, he admitted. But not of you. I'm afraid I've corrupted you. Turned you into something dark. That one day you'll wake up and realize what I've done to you and hate me for it. What if I don't want to be saved? What if I like what I'm becoming? Then God help us both. He kissed me. Soft at first, then deeper. Desperate. Like he was trying to pour everything he couldn't say into that kiss. And I kissed him back with equal desperation because he was right. We were both damned. Both corrupted. Both too far gone to turn back. When we finally broke apart, I whispered against his lips. No more lies. No more secrets. If we're doing this, if I'm really your queen, then you treat me like one. You trust me with everything. Agreed. His eyes held mine. No more lies. No more secrets. We burn together or not at all. We burn together. I promised. 6 months later, I stood in the same penthouse where this had all begun and watched Chicago spread out below me. The city looked different now. Or maybe I was different and the city was just reflecting that back at me. Dante came up behind me, wrapped his arms around my waist, rested his chin on my shoulder. What are you thinking about? Everything. How 6 months ago I was a nurse who thought she understood the world. How naive I was. How much has changed. Regrets? None. I turned in his arms. Only that I didn't find you sooner. He kissed my forehead, my temple, the corner of my mouth. You've become everything I knew you could be. Ruthless when you need to be. Compassionate when you choose to be. My equal in every way that matters. What happened to my father? I hadn't asked before, hadn't wanted to know. But now I did. He lasted 3 days with the Volkovs. Dante's voice was matter of fact. Gave them everything he knew, which wasn't much. They killed him slow. Made sure he understood it was because of his own daughter's testimony. Good. I felt nothing saying it. My father had made his choices, had lived by betrayal. It was fitting he died by it too. The darkness in me that had started as a spark was now a steady flame. Not consuming, not destroying, just burning. Constant. Reminding me that I'd crossed lines I could never uncross. That I'd become someone I never intended to be. And that I wouldn't change it even if I could. Because this life with Dante, with the power and the danger and the obsessive devotion we'd built, was more real than anything I'd had before. We weren't healthy, weren't normal, weren't anything a therapist would approve of. But we were ours, forged in lies and sealed in blood and absolutely unbreakable. Dante's phone buzzed. He checked it, frowned. What? Marco, he's found something. Intel on a new player trying to move into Chicago. Someone we need to deal with. Do you want me there? Always. He pulled me toward the door. You're my partner, Elena. My queen. Where I go, you go. I smiled. Grabbed my jacket. Checked the gun I now carried everywhere. Let's go then. We have an empire to protect. As we left the penthouse, I caught my reflection in the mirror by the door. The woman looking back at me was beautiful. Confident. Dangerous. Nothing like the frightened nurse who'd walked down a cathedral aisle 6 months ago. That girl was gone, erased as completely as if she'd never existed. In her place was someone new, Elena Moretti, queen of the Chicago underworld, wife to a monster. Monster in her own right. And I wouldn't have it any other way. They say love conquers all. They never mention what you have to become to survive it. Never talk about the pieces of yourself you have to sacrifice. The innocence you have to burn, the lines you have to cross. But I'd learned the truth. Love doesn't conquer. It transforms. It corrupts. It takes everything soft and vulnerable and turns it to steel. And if you're lucky, if you're strong enough, you emerge from that transformation not broken but remade. Dangerous and devoted in equal measure. I looked at Dante as we stepped into the elevator. At the man who'd stalked me and trapped me and obsessively loved me into becoming this. At my husband, my partner, my damnation and salvation. He caught me staring, raised an eyebrow. Second thoughts? Never. I laced my fingers through his. Just thinking about how far we've come, how far we'll go, as far as it takes. His grip tightened, whatever it takes. I'd burn the world for you, Elena. I know, I whispered. And I'd help you light the match. The elevator doors closed. Chicago waited below, full of threats and opportunities and people who didn't yet understand that the balance of power had shifted, that there was a new queen in the underworld, one who'd learned from the best, who'd been forged in fire and emerged stronger, who would protect what was hers with the same ruthless efficiency her husband had taught her. They'd underestimated me once, looked at the nurse from Queens and seen weakness, seen a victim, seen someone to use and discard. They wouldn't make that mistake again, because I'd learned the most important lesson of all, the one Dante had been trying to teach me from the beginning. In this world there are no victims, only predators and prey, and I'd chosen which one I wanted to be. The doors opened. We stepped out into the night, and somewhere in the darkness of Chicago, someone who didn't know any better was about to learn what it meant to threaten what belonged to Elena Moretti. I almost felt sorry for them. Almost. But mercy was something